Celi here, and we're hanging out with singer, songwriter turned author Simon Curtis.
Hey.
So good to be hanging with you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You're not an in-the-box kind of artist. I mean, you do incredible music, by the way.
Oh,
I was listening to it on the way here. And the cool thing about it is your new album,
yes.
The very first song is Boy Robot, which is also a book that you're writing. And what is that? Like, you're an artist, but you're writing a book. Like, talk to me about
It's a pretty crazy story. So I started out with music with my first album. It was called 8-Bit Heart. And the first track on it, like you said, is Boy Robot. I released that in 2010, and then later in that summer, I befriended this author who I'm a huge fan of on Twitter. His name's Michael Scott. And I was hanging out with him while he was in town, and he just asked me, when are you writing your book? And I was like, oh man, that's something I've always dreamed of. I really want to do that, but that has to wait till I'm older. Like when I'm, when music is over and I have some time to breathe, then. And he was just like, no, you have to do this now. Like, you already started telling the story in your album. You have to do this. And I was like, you're right. And so I started conceptualizing a book series that day, and I started outlining and really kind of like fleshing it out. And I always kind of had this concept that was inspired by that first album.
Right.
And so now here I am 6 years later, and it's about to be published. So they're kind of tied together, kind of like loosely tied together, but it's not, they don't really have anything to do with each other other than kind of like references and names and things like that.
How awesome is it that the universe literally conspires for your inner desires?
It does.
But
absolutely.
Is it like fear that said, hey, I'm gonna do it when I'm older? Like, what was that about? Like,
I mean, possibly. I think it's one of those things where, like you look at a book or you look at any goal really, and you kind of put certain expectations and limits on yourself. Especially when they seem really lofty. When they, like, the bigger they seem, the more kind of limited you can feel at times or intimidated. And I think that's just what it was. I never thought that I could write a book. I didn't go to school, and I thought that was something that like I would have to go back to college for. And but I've been writing my whole life. I started writing poems when I was like 7 years old, and I've always been a storyteller in that way. But I don't know, a novel just seemed so big and scary. So I guess it was kind of fear.
And you overcame it. Who is Boy Robot? Like, is it you? Is it this idea you had in your brain? Like, talk to me about.
It's, the concept of the book, and it was the concept of the album as well, is kind of like, well, what defines humanity? What makes us human? And the biggest thing that makes us human is love. We have the capacity to love. And I think that's just such an interesting, broad concept to explore. And, in terms of Boy Robot, there is a lead character, and it is kind of about his journey of overcoming fear and finding the ability to love. So it's kind of like some base concepts that kind of connect everybody.
But you said it was kind of like a long process. Like, what was the process like?
The whole process of just making a book period has been so crazy to me. I had no idea how much work went into it, how many people it takes to put everything together and get everything edited, and just the machine behind it is really kind of staggering when you realize how much goes into it. I signed my book deal a year ago today. 1 year ago.
Congratulations!
When I signed the deal. And in the contract, the release window was November 2016. And I just remember thinking, like, oh my God, that's so far away. That's like 2 years. Why is it going to take this long? And then once you get into the process and you see all these different steps, it's just like, whoa, this really does take this long. Every single book I'm looking at Barnes & Noble has taken years to wind up in this like solid form that I'm holding.
What did you learn about yourself in this process?
I learned to trust my gut. I learned to have a lot of faith in myself. So, I mean, if anything, it was kind of like a lot of realization about what I'm capable of bringing to the table. So that was really cool.
Yeah. I mean, in any process can be maddening. There's all, like you said, all these people, all these loopholes, all this stuff.
Yeah.
What do you do to stay grounded? What are some of your rituals? I see on your Instagram you have like crystals. Like talk about looking in the crystal ball. Talk to me about that. Like what is?
Well, I'm super into crystals. I always have been ever since I was a little kid. I mean, I'm covered in them right now.
Blinged out.
But yeah, I think you know, for me personally, I have a really small, tight-knit group of friends. I live with my boyfriend and my best friend, and you know, it's just kind of like I keep my home base is kind of like a very tight-knit, cozy, like family core. And I think that's really important to have kind of like a family away from family. I'm from Oklahoma, and I've lived out here for 11 years now. So it's been, I think that's the biggest thing, is just kind of like establishing a family that's away from your blood family, and kind of making your home really your home, so that you kind of have that shelter to relax in and find your groundedness and center yourself in.
Are you like, do you feel like the crystals give you like that extra superpower? You know, I think we all, like as artists, we all have our little thing, you know, that like, I like to wear like elephants. I think they bring really good fortune. So whenever I go to an audition, I got a little elephant.
Good, yeah.
Yeah,
that's, I mean, it's like the same, it's like a similar concept. You know, I think one of the things that really, you know, drew me to, you know, working with crystals and like meditation and stuff is just kind of having that tool to manifest, having that tool that kind of like makes you focus on the things that you want to manifest and kind of be conscious about your presence. You know, when you have a collection of crystals and you say, which one am I keeping with me in my pocket throughout the day, and what do I want to focus on, and you put one in your pocket and you keep it with you, your mind's focused on that. Like that's a reminder in the physical world of what you were trying to be and achieve in the non-physical realm. So it's, you know, I think it's just a really good physical reminder and tool in that way.
What I love about you is that you're not afraid to be who you are. You know, you know who you are, and you know you're in an open relationship with your boyfriend, and you're a musician. But there was a time where musicians kind of feared or felt like, maybe I shouldn't say that I'm gay in order to do my artwork. Like let the music speak for itself. Like, was that something you ever thought about, or you just always knew?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I started doing really publicly was kids TV, like Nickelodeon and Disney Channel and things like that. And that was a really scary place.
Yeah.
Especially for being a young gay actor. And you know, by the time I moved to LA, I was already out. My friends knew, my family knew. I went through a really difficult time coming out with my family. Like I was kicked out of my house, but I overcame all of that before I ever even moved to LA. So I'd gone through the fire by the time I arrived here, and then kind of showing up and having this entire industry tell me that I had to go back in the closet. And you know, to be sat down by managers and agents and publicists and kind of be, you know, lightly threatened by TV executives, and you know, like I went through some really, really crazy shit in my journey just with being who I am.
Right.
And you know, that was one of the things that was so liberating about finally doing music the way that I wanted to, is because I didn't have anybody telling me who I had to be. And even with my music, for the first couple of years, I was still really censoring myself, because you know, I wanted that industry acceptance. I wanted that big record deal, and I wanted this and that, and I wanted those gates to open for me. So I still censored myself in that way, because I knew that those gates wouldn't be open to me any other way. But now I've really grown past that and released that, and I don't give a fuck. Like, it's who I am, and you know, you have to be kind of like unabashed about that, because you know, there's really no other way to live. Any other way is just fearful.
Where do you want to take people with your music?
I think, you know, my editor of my book asked me about this, because we were, you know, kind of talking about my music in relation to the book, and you know, I kind of realized that I always felt like I made music for outsiders, or people who kind of feel like outsiders. And more than anything, you know, I think there is like a unifying message, and it's just kind of about being true to yourself and really kind of, you know, living fearlessly, as we've been talking about. And you know, if my music can take people anywhere, it's to that place. Like, if I could give anything to people after listening to one of my albums, it would kind of be you know, that spark of inspiration to just kind of be a little more fearless and be a little bit more like, fuck yeah, this is who I am.
Yeah.
So if anything, I would say that.
Yeah. We all have, I believe, we all have this a burning story on the inside of us.
Yeah.
And we've all been put on this earth for different purposes, so we tell those stories differently. But for what has this done for you to be able to tell this story, to write this book and write your music? What has that done for you?
It's, I mean, that's...
Because you could have kept it in.
I mean, that's the biggest step, you know, like being able to just kind of be honest about yourself and express yourself freely. I mean, I don't think that you can fully create anything until you get to that place. So, you know, for me, I'm kind of having this like dam bursting of all this creative stuff coming out, and it's because I'm finally at a place where I'm just like, whoa, this is who I am. Like, this is me, and I should not be afraid to express that.
Thanks for hanging out with me. And one of the things I love to talk about is, what are your top 5 places to hang out? Like, where
Ooh.
Yeah.
Top 5 places
Where does
to
Simon hang out?
I'm always in Silver Lake. I think that's probably like if I have a day off and I just want to go hang out.
Yeah.
Like I'll go. I love the Getty. That's one of my favorite spots in LA. I love being outdoors, especially in LA. So like hiking, like Fryman Canyon, Runyon. I love doing all that stuff. I'm always at the Galleria in Sherman Oaks. I live in the Valley, so I'm always at ArcLight.
Yeah.
Oh, Crystallarium, Crystal Store in West Hollywood. I'm always there.
Thanks for hanging out, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe and join the village.